The floor shook so hard that dust fell from the ceiling like snow. I grabbed the edge of the control desk and held on, my heart slamming against my ribs. Somewhere above us, metal screamed. Not bent, not cracked. Torn, like paper in giant hands. Grace grabbed my arm. Her eyes were wide, her voice barely a whisper. "That's not the outer wall anymore. That's the blast door." I already knew. I had built half the systems in this bunker with my own hands. I knew every sound this place made, every groan, every creak. This sound was new, and new meant something had broken through what nothing was ever supposed to break through. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied into a dim red glow. Emergency power. That meant the main line was gone. "Everyone to the lower levels," I shouted, my voice cracking through the static of old speakers. "Now, move." Around me, people scattered like startled birds. Children were pulled by their wrists. An old man leaned on his cane and hurried faster than I had ever seen him move. 6 years underground had taught all of us one lesson better than any other. When the alarms scream, you run first and ask questions later. I did not run. My leg had never healed right since the first bombardment, and besides, someone had to see what had broken through. Someone had to know what we were facing. I turned toward the stairwell that led up to the atrium, my crutch tapping against the concrete floor with every uneven step. The corridor smelled like burnt wiring and fear. At the top of the stairs, the door to the atrium hung twisted on broken hinges. Through the gap, I saw something that made my breath catch in my throat. She filled the entire chamber. Her body rose higher than the ceiling supports, curved and armored in plates that shimmered faintly, like they were catching light from somewhere I couldn't see. Her eyes, 4 of them, glowed a soft silver, and when she turned her head toward me, the whole room seemed to grow smaller. I should have run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn around, to go back down the stairs, to hide with everyone else. Instead, I stood frozen, staring up at something that looked like it had walked out of a myth and decided to make itself real. She did not attack. Instead, with a motion that brought a chunk of the ceiling crashing down behind her, she turned and sealed the broken door shut. Not open for retreat, not open for her own kind to follow. Sealed, like she wanted to be locked in with us. A voice came through my translator implant, a device that had been silent for years because there had been nothing left worth translating. It buzzed to life now, carrying one single word. Mine. I did not understand what she meant, not yet. For 2 days, she did not move from the atrium. The survivors stayed hidden in the deepest levels, rationing food that was already stretched too thin, listening for footsteps that never came. I checked on the water systems, the air filters, anything that kept people alive, but every hour that passed, I felt the same question pulling at me. Why had she sealed herself in with us, instead of tearing the bunker apart? On the 3rd day, I decided to find out. Grace tried to stop me at the stairwell. "You are not going up there alone," she said, blocking my path with her arms crossed. "Someone has to," I told her. "If she wanted us dead, we would already be dead. I need to know what she wants." Grace searched my face for a long moment, then stepped aside, though I could tell it cost her something to do it. "Come back down," she said. "Whatever happens, come back down." I promised her I would, and then I climbed the stairs, my crutch tapping out a slow rhythm against the silence. The atrium looked different in daylight, filtering through a cracked skylight far above. Dust hung in the air like fog. She was still there, coiled among the wreckage of collapsed beams, watching the entrance the moment I stepped through it. "You held," she said, and her voice, filtered through something ancient and strange, still came out almost gentle. "This structure, 6 years, and it held. Do you understand what that means, small one?" I did not answer right away. My mind raced, trying to understand what she was really asking. "My scouts mapped this world before I arrived," she continued. "Every fortress on this planet fell within weeks. Your people starved, froze, turned against each other. Yet this room, this door, held far longer than anything should have. She lowered her massive head until one glowing eye filled my entire vision. I did not come here to destroy this bunker. I came to see what built it. That was when I understood what mine meant, and it had nothing to do with hunger or destruction. It was something far stranger. She had claimed me, the engineer who kept 300 people alive on systems built for far fewer, the one who had rerouted power lines and rebuilt broken filters with nothing but scrap metal and desperation. Somehow, she had been watching, and she had decided I was the reason this fortress had survived when every other place had fallen. She was not entirely wrong, but she had no idea how wrong she was to think that made me hers. Over the following days, she let me move freely through the ruined atrium, always watching, always curious, like a scholar studying something rare. She asked questions about the walls, about the systems, about how a species without her kind's strength or size had managed to outlast every fortress her people had crushed. I answered carefully, giving her just enough to keep her interest, never enough to reveal what I was really doing. Because while she sat there, savoring what she believed was her prize, I was mapping every vent, every duct, every narrow passage too small for her enormous body, but wide enough for a signal, or a person, to slip through. 3 explosive charges remained from the earliest days of the bombardment, hidden away for what everyone had hoped would never come. I began moving them, piece by piece, hidden inside tool bags and supply crates, toward the support pylons she had crushed on her way into the bunker. Pylons that now held the weight of the mountain above her head. She never suspected a thing. Why would she? I was small, slow, clearly no threat to something her size. I was hers now, in her mind, a curious little creature who had earned her fascination. Queens do not expect their prizes to fight back, and that arrogance became the only weapon I needed. On the 6th night, I made my final trip up the stairs, my crutch tapping against each step like a countdown. She noticed the tools I carried, the wires trailing from my bag, but she only tilted her head with something close to amusement. "You are leaving," she said, as if the idea itself was strange to her. "No," I answered, keeping my voice steady even as my hands shook. "I am finishing what your scouts should have told you 6 years ago. We do not survive because we are strong. We survive because we do not stop." I reached the last support pylon and pressed the final charge into place. "You misunderstand your own victory," I told her, backing slowly toward the narrow vent only someone my size could fit through. "You said I was yours. You had it backward the whole time." Her 4 eyes narrowed, and for the first time, something like uncertainty crossed her enormous features. "Explain," she said. "You sealed yourself in with 300 people," I said, "because you wanted to study the one thing that outlasted your army. But you never once asked why we outlasted it. It was never about walls or weapons. It was about never giving up, no matter how bad things got." I triggered the detonator. The explosion did not bring the mountain down on her. She was too vast, too armored for that, and I had never expected it to. Instead, the ceiling above the stairwell collapsed in a controlled wave of rubble, sealing the passage between the atrium and the lower levels where the survivors waited. She was cut off completely from ever reaching them, trapped in the one chamber she had claimed as her own. Through the settling dust, I heard her voice one final time, and for once, it did not carry curiosity or amusement. It carried something closer to disbelief. "You would trap yourself here, with me, to protect the others. That is the part you never understood," I said, already climbing into the narrow vent, the one passage small enough for someone half-starved and limping, but far too tight for her. "You called me yours. You had it backward from the very beginning." I looked back one last time at the queen who had crossed unimaginable distances, searching for something worth keeping. "This bunker was never yours to claim," I told her. "This planet was never yours to seal us into. and I was never going to be anyone's prize. Then the dust and darkness swallowed the rest, and somewhere behind me, a queen who had traveled across the stars finally understood that she had walked into the one place she could never leave. I crawled through the vent for what felt like hours, my leg burning, my lungs filled with dust, until finally I dropped into the lower corridor where Grace was waiting, her face pale with worry. "You came back," she said, pulling me into a tight hug before I could even catch my breath. "I told you I would," I answered. Behind us, deep within the sealed chamber, the queen remained, trapped by walls she once thought she controlled. The bunker held, just as it always had, not because of strength, not because of size, but because somebody refused to stop building, refused to stop fighting, refused to give up, even when everything above ground had already fallen. That is what we do. That is what we have always done. And no matter how large the threat, no matter how far it travels to find us, it will always underestimate the one thing it can never take from us: our will to hold on.